We all know that a good marriage is a partnership where both spouses handle the finances together, the chores together, the childcare together. But focusing too much on those shared responsibilities can sometimes also make you feel like roommates and less like romantic partners. My next guest will show you how you can stop coexisting and start emotionally engaging with your spouse again so that your partnership doesn't lack in any love. Relationship coach Crystal Hansen joins me. Welcome in, Crystal.
Hi.
I really like this topic because we do talk a lot about sharing responsibilities and how men's and women's roles have kind of merged a lot lately. But you're saying on the flip side of that, sometimes it can start to feel like a roommate situation.
Yeah, for sure.
So give us some scenarios of what that could look like or feel like.
Yeah, so I mean, typically when we start to notice it, it's like, we go to work, we get the kids off, and it really doesn't matter what our roles are. It's just, we have our routines, right? It's like mundane. Even like the pecks on the cheek or like on the lips when we walk in the door, or the hugs before we go to bed, or the I love yous can just start being a checklist as opposed to having emotion behind it.
Mm-hmm. Just can feel a little bit more like monotonous, like we just something that we always do.
Yeah.
So you want to help us kind of break that cycle, and you say that the most important thing to do is to start communicating a little bit differently. So kind of tell us what that looks like. What are some questions that we could be asking, and how do we get those conversations going?
Yeah, so a good place, I always like to tell my clients this, meet yourselves where you are. So it's a good thing to have a conversation with yourself even and be like, okay, what is it that I'm missing? What is it that I wish that I still had? Or where could I see improvements? And then going to your partner and having that conversation together where you're kind of sitting on the same side of the table and saying, hey, how can we improve this? This is what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? And what would we like to do together?
And I imagine coming at it from a place of, I want to make this better, not like accusatory, like that's got to be a big part of it, right? Because we can't make changes if... So are there specific questions that we should be asking each other or ourselves, just kind of checking in?
You know, some of the things that I like to do is really just go back and be like, okay, what are the things that I've loved and I miss? Like those are really good things to check in on because we usually have an emotional attachment to that, so it's easy to find a way to ignite those a little bit quicker.
Yeah, just kind of asking kind of what am I needing emotionally? What are you needing emotionally? It'd be very interesting to hear both sides of the story. And I imagine you have to be really open to hearing both sides of the story or it's not going to go anywhere. Right?
Absolutely.
Amazing. And then you say it's also important that we are scheduling in time, right? We're making that quality time. What does that look like?
So I'm not a person that likes to schedule. I am like, if it's like Wednesday at 5 o'clock, I kind of get a little rebellious. I know that works for some people, but for me it doesn't. So I always like to say, instead of consistency, just be persistent. Just keep coming back to it. Keep making sure that it's at the top of your list or at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah.
So, but if a schedule works, great.
So it can be adaptable to what people want, but we just need to get it in there somewhere, that quality time where we're doing things together. All right, well, next you say that you want us to address the intimacy gap. Tell us, I don't even know what that means, so tell me what that means and how we address it.
Well, it's fun because it's kind of a big gap, right? Like intimacy can be as simple as holding hands or giving each other a kiss, or intimacy as a couple in alone time, things like that. So like I said, it really does mean meeting yourselves where you are. So if you're not used to, you've fallen out of holding hands or giving each other a hug or a kiss, then start there. Start where it's easy. We don't have to go from 0 to 60. That's usually really hard to get buy-in on that.
And do we have that as a purposeful conversation where you're saying, I miss holding hands with you, I want to do that more? Or do you just kind of like try and sneak it in there and just have it be more spontaneous?
You know what? I think both. I like both. And I think if it's simple, like sneak it in there and it works and you feel that between each other, great. And if not, it really can be a conversation where it's like, hey, you know what? I love when we do this. It makes me feel more close to you. And I like that. Can you do that more?
And coming to it from the idea that it's like not, again, accusatory, that something is missing, right? I would imagine that coming to it from a place of, hey, I do love this when we do this together and we connected this, or I missed this, and it's more of a positive, let's kind of swing the pendulum back conversation versus you're not doing this thing that we used to do conversation.
That will get you nowhere.
That will get us nowhere. And you say that when we start to feel like roommates, we don't want to avoid the topics of house chores, because those things still have to happen, right? So we still need to be able to talk about them. But do you have some tips on the best way to talk about them and to kind of set those things up in each role?
Yes, absolutely. So the point of marriage is doing life together, right? But we want it to be a partnership. So having those household roles, that is part of a partnership. We are partners in taking care of kids or a home or pets or, our work and our jobs. And the point of it isn't to put it all into subcategories. It's like, how can we create this life together and how are we going to do it together as a team, as opposed to this is your role, this is my role.
So revisit the roles, talk about them, and make sure you feel good about them. But it doesn't have to be like a hard and fast thing all the time, too.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like that's a true marriage where somebody can swoop in and say, hey, you usually take out the garbage, but I can do it today, and I'm gonna jump in to do it today, right? Because I think sometimes, again, you get into the role of, well, he does garbages, I do dishes, and sometimes it just doesn't match up that way, right?
Exactly.
We have to be a little bit more flexible on that one.
Yes.
Amazing. So another thing you say is we should revisit interests and things that we did maybe in the past or things that really ignite us and make sure that we're taking time for those shared interests and values.
Yeah, and some of those can be old and some of them can be new, right? We can go back to things that we really enjoyed doing, but we also can be like, hey, it'd be really fun to start doing this, or let's try to do this, or I've always wanted to do this, let's do it together.
Oh, I like that a lot because you're right. Nostalgia is one thing.
Yeah.
We always go back to, oh, it was the good old days,
Yes.
right? But you're right. Doing something new together is amazing. My husband and I both play tennis. We have separate tennis groups that we play with, but then when we play together, we're always like, why don't we play this more often? Like we have so much fun together. So it's important that we kind of find time to do the thing that we love, but not just with our own friends, but with each other as well. So kind of
I love that.
Revisiting old interests.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, this is super, super helpful. I know that you offer virtual kind of counseling. If this kind of resonates with any of our audience where they feel like maybe they've fallen into this kind of roommate rut and they could use a little bit more guidance, a little bit more counseling, tell us about your practice and how you kind of work with couples.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm a couples coach. So I always like to give this preface. If anybody needs therapy or has anything going on like that, we definitely want to. I'm always really good to refer out, but counseling has its place and coaching has its place.
Yeah.
So anyone who wants help with like tools and implementing that and self-awareness, I've got you. I get a lot of couples that are dealing with conflict and they don't know how to move out of that or, whatever. And so, like you said, I work with clients virtually, and so it makes it really easy. A lot of times I have a husband that's on a work break and a wife that's on her work break, or, they're in different locations, but it works really well.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I think a reminder that this takes time, that this is not a one-time conversation, right?
Absolutely.
This is something that we're going to have to kind of revisit time and time again to make sure that we're all on the same page, right?
Yes.
Well, so how do we get a hold of you? What are you on social media or anything like that?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website. It's crystalhansencoaching.com. And then you can also find me on social media. It's crystalhansen_.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Crystal. This is a really great topic. I know that I have some homework to do now.